Hello and welcome to Paranormalities After Dark. This is a new series we're doing. It is normally going to be me, your host Jack Kirby, talking with different people in the paranormal umbrella of things. So I thought today, because of the fact that tropical storm slash Hurricane Elsa is coming through and I have nothing better to do, it actually just passed us and we're kind of at the tail end of it, getting some of the dirty stuff, but it shouldn't be too bad and hopefully I don't lose power. So today's episode or tonight's show is going to be a live call-in show where you guys can call in, share your paranormal stories, your UFO encounters. I really want to talk to a time traveler. Really want to talk to a time traveler. So if there's a time traveler out there that wants to talk to me, you can call in too. I am going to put the call number up on the screen. And while I'm waiting for somebody to call in and chat, I'm going to tell you guys about my first paranormal experience. So the call-in number is now up. And yeah, my first paranormal experience was really kind of creepy. So I grew up in Illinois and I was probably 18 years old at the time, which is now been 21 plus years. Well, anyway, we decided that we wanted to go and try to find this cemetery that is technically supposed to be the most haunted cemetery in the state of Illinois. There's been several books written about it, but it's called Graveyard X. And what it is, there's an old part of the cemetery and a new part of the cemetery. And the cemetery is actually still being used today. But the old part of the cemetery is old. We're talking early settlement times old. So there's a lot of bodies buried out there that don't have markers. What it actually ended up being, it was a wagon train stop to bury their dead. And then they actually ended up settling a few miles west of where they had the cemetery. So there's a lot of people buried out there. There's a lot of unknown graves out there in the woods somewhere. Well, when you get to this cemetery, it's kind of hard to type and chat and talk at the same time. But when you get to this cemetery, you have to go out in the middle of nowhere and you turn right down this path. It's like a gravel path. Now, looking to your left, there's the new part of the cemetery. And the new part of the cemetery, it's still being used today. People get buried there. But then there's the old side of the cemetery, which is, like I said, much older on the end. And that's where everything happens. Well, we pull in and we get up to the fence. And the first thing that I notice is that it's extremely cold on the other side. And I've always heard that, in paranormal experiences, cold has to do with ghosts and stuff like that. So that kind of, at that point in my life, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Well, we get in there and we start walking around and looking at just all the graves and just seeing if we could see anything. And nothing really happened too bad while we were out there. Nothing scary. Nothing jumped out at us. But the weird thing that happened was whenever we walked back out of the cemetery, we went to my car. And at that point in time, I was driving a Dodge Durango. And I'm a smoker. So I left my window, the driver's side window, about an inch down or so. And I had all the lights turned off, everything. We get back to my car, we open the door, and it's just full of white moths. This white moths just come flying out of the car. And like I said, there was no lights on. My window was cracked in about an inch down. The only thing was there's no way that all those moths, there were hundreds of them that got in there, and there's no way that could happen in that short a time, because we were only out there about a good 30 minutes, 35 minutes. Still to this day, it freaks me out because I have no idea how they got in there. There was no light to attract them. But then after that, we had this wind kind of pick up, and then it kind of had this smell of lavender or lilac, I want to say. I can't remember. Like I said, it was like 20 some plus years ago, and it just engulfed everything, and it was really crazy. So we got out of there and left. And then about, I want to say 3, maybe 4 weeks later, a month later, something like that, we decided to go back to that cemetery. And we park in the same place, and we go in the same entrance. And once again, it was really cold once you cross that threshold. Now, and here's another weird thing. I remember how I said that cemetery had a new side and an old side. Well, the old side, once you cross the road to the new side, it warms back up again. This, I guess, blanket of coldness only surrounded that old part of the cemetery, which was weird to me as well. But we were walking around, and I saw this shadow figure, shadow person, I would say. And I stopped my friend, and I was like, "Did you see that?" And they're like, What are you talking about? And I was like, I saw this shadow, tall guy, just a tall man walking around in the outskirts of the cemetery. And so my friend was like, "No, I didn't see anything." Well, I'm starting walking around, and my friend's like, "Did you see that thing again? Because I think I saw it." And I was asked, "Where did you see it?" And she's like, "Way over in front of us." And at that point in time, I actually, I just so happened to catch a glance of this shadow figure standing to the left of me, about 20, 30 feet away. And I was like, "No, because it's right over there." And by the time she looked, she couldn't see it. So I decided I was a little too freaked out. I walked back to my Durango. Well, once I get there, I sat inside. I lit up a cigarette and just sat there. The window just rolled down about an inch or so. And I was trying just to figure everything out. And well, at that moment, I saw this shadow figure on my passenger side window, in the back, not at the actual front of the vehicle, but the passenger side back door. And it walked all the way around to the passenger side of the front, and did that about 2 or 3 times that I actually saw before I got so freaked out that I turned all the interior lights on, because I didn't want to see what was out there. And then I started the car up, and everybody came back, and I told them what I saw, and they were kind of freaked out by that, and we drove off. And that was probably one of the last times that I was at that cemetery. It freaked me out that bad that I've been back there, but not for a long period of time. So, and that was my introduction to the paranormal. Feel free to call in with your stories, or if you've had an encounter with a UFO or an extraterrestrial, or you want to talk conspiracies, or you just want to say, hey, go ahead and hit the live call in. And if you're a time traveler, like seriously, you have no idea how bad that I want to talk to a time traveler. I really want to talk to a time traveler. So if you know a time traveler, or you are a time traveler, and you're seeing this in the future, since it was posted today, or it will post, get a hold of me. My email is paranormalityradio@gmail.com. Also, anybody who wants to share their stories can send their stories to paranormalityradio@gmail.com. So after that happened, I ended up going to college. Nothing really happened down there too much. I went to college in Tennessee, and there wasn't really anything that I found that was too paranormal, except for the tattoo shop I worked in used to be a funeral home. And I was a body piercer, and I was in my piercing room, and I'm getting ready to pierce somebody, and all of a sudden I just heard this scream, and it sounded like a girl, just high pitched scream. So I went out of my room and went to the next room where they were doing tattoos. Well, nobody was in there getting tattooed. I mean, because I literally thought it was a girl who couldn't take the pain of a tattoo, and she was just screaming. And that's not what it was at all. It was the tattoo artist, both of them screaming like little children, which at the time I thought was funny as hell that they sounded like that. But apparently, while I was in the other room, they were just sitting there talking, and there was this frame above the door of the entranceway. And I guess that used to be the viewing area. And in where my room was, my piercing room, that was the embalming area. So I kind of found it a little weird that I was doing body piercings in an old embalming room. That was interesting information to find out. And so anyway, they're just talking back and forth, and there's this picture on top of the door. And it was screwed in-ish. They put the poster up and they put the screws on the sides so not to mess, but it was in there secure. And it came flying off the wall and into the middle of the floor. And they all started screaming like girls, and I don't blame them. I would have probably done the same. But that's really, I never had any paranormal experiences there. But that was something interesting that happened there. But I want to hear your stories, so feel free to call in and share your story. So I had this interesting experience for about 5 years of my life. Hold on just 1 second. We're gonna take a call. Hello?
Hey, Mark.
How's it going?
I mean, Jack, I'm sorry. I was just texting Mark.
It is quite all right.
No, I was messaging Mark Muncie. I was like, hey, come on and tell us a story tonight from Erie, Florida. And he's all, I'm hunkering down for the storm.
So here's the thing with that. He's in St. Pete.
That's right.
Okay, so right now, as we're speaking, St. Petersburg is getting hit with Hurricane Elsa.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of crazy. Actually, I've reached out to Mark, and I think he's going to be on an episode of After Dark, because I do want to hear some Florida stories.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've actually reached out to him as well, trying to get a just interview or whatever, because I know he's coming out with another book this fall. So I said, let's just try to feature it. So
Nice. So yeah, like
double duty.
So yeah, so that's why I'm sure that's why he's unavailable right now to come on. The hurricane actually just, like I said, just passed us not too long ago, and now we're getting the dirty side of things every so often, and that's when the wind and the rain come. It's going to be a interesting next few hours.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised you're online right now.
I'm going to do it until the power goes out. So
nice.
But what kind of experience have you had?
Well, I've had several, and I actually had my daughter in here earlier with me, and then she just ran out. And I asked her, I was like, well, what should I do? I've had a lot of ghost experiences, and I've had what I think might be a Bigfoot experience. And she's like, well, do your Bigfoot experience, because it's it's kind of like, because I'm such a huge ghost fan, and I've had so much happen to me, that was kind of like my initiation into the paranormal world. But yeah, the Bigfoot thing was kind of like, I kind of gave some credence to Bigfoot, but I never looked into it until this one thing happened to me.
So what happened to you? Were you looking for Bigfoot?
No, I wasn't. So I lived and grew up in South Texas for, at the time, I guess I would say it was about 29 years of my life, where trees don't grow over 6 feet tall. And it's a very flat landscape, so you can usually see for a mile or two in any direction. So there was a point in my career where I was asked to take on a supervisor role out in Texas and Louisiana, not really knowing the terrain all that well, and was just young and looking to move up in a job promotion. So I automatically said, yes, I'll take it. So I got out there, and I didn't realize the amount of just forest and pine trees around East Texas, the Cattle Lake area, which also butted up against the Arkansas border. And so it was all kind of a new world to me to actually try to drive to a location throughout the thick, just pine forest. And you couldn't, I was used to being able to see a location a mile away, and I said, okay, well, the road kind of goes this way. For my job, I worked very remote. And I'd also have to find these oil field locations. So I was used to seeing the road a mile away, and I could find a location that way. But whenever it came to East Texas, Louisiana, everything was pine trees. So you're taking a road, and the location might be 100 feet in front of you, but you wouldn't know until you kind of turned around a corner, and it was there. So very thick, very wooded area. Like I said, at the time, I was not really into any of that, finding Bigfoot or any of that, but there was a location in particular. And then as this incident happened and I was told what I was told, I was realized that it wasn't too far from what is Falk, Arkansas. And if you know the legend of Boggy Creek.
I have heard of it.
Yeah. So I've been to this location several times, and as you open the gate and you go through, you got to close the gate behind you. There, of course, is a narrow road, and on both sides, trees. It's a one truck lane road, and it's about a quarter mile of a stretch, and then you kind of wrap around a bunch of trees until you get to this location, which is completely surrounded by trees. So as I'm driving in, to my right, I noticed one solitary tree shaking very violently. And on this day, there was no wind, so none of the other trees are moving except for this one tree. So I'm thinking, okay, could be a hog, something like that, scratching his back. So I kind of drive up slow, and I'm trying to see what's there. And as I get about 10 yards from it, the tree stops. And I don't see anything moving. I'm looking into the woods. I'm looking for a hog, so I'm kind of looking for tracks and stuff to see, there must be a group of hogs, because they are very prevalent in that area. I don't see anything, so I go onto the location, and I had an issue with what they call a kind of like a RTU unit there in the oil field that used to do different control actions for these tanks and pumps and stuff. And I already knew what the problem was, so I do what I usually do. I pull up on location, I get close to the meter, I open up the truck door, I get my tools out, and I usually leave the door open to let the radio play, so I have something to listen to while I'm working, because I know the job's going to take me about 20 minutes. So about at the 10-minute mark as I'm working there, I hear this giant knock come out of the woods.
Like,
and it's
how
close
far
enough.
away?
Oh, man. To me, it sounded like it was probably about 50 or 60 feet away. So it was close enough for me to stop and like turn around and think, okay, either something's out there or someone's out there. So I walk over to my truck. I kind of turn my radio down. I'm like, okay, I've been working out there for a year already, so I had never heard anything like this before. So I am a little cautious. So truck's still running. I go out there and I'm fiddling around in this box. I'm getting my little jumpers in place. And then I hear another knock. And it sounds a little bit closer. I'm thinking maybe if I had to go distance, maybe 30, 40 feet away. So I go over there and I turn off my truck. So now it's completely silent. I'm looking around. I don't see anything. So I'm there and I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I got about 2 more minutes worth of work. Let's just finish this up. Let's get this thing going. Let's get the hell out of here. So I go over there. I go ahead and finish my work. I'm getting done. I load up my bag into my truck, start my truck up, and then I hear another knock. And at this time, I'm kind of like, okay, somebody's out there messing with me. I don't know what it is. I never heard this before in my life. I'm thinking some kind of hillbilly's out there, got a still or something, trying to scare me off. So I'm kind of loading up in a hurry now. And as I'm about to, turn my wheels to my truck, I see this car come around, and I realize it's the operator for this facility. And he comes up and he gets out of his truck, and I go over there and I said, hey, I was like, not to be weird or anything, but I was like, do you have any like hogs or bear out here or anything that would cause like a lot of loud knocking in the woods? And he says, well, I never heard a knocking sound. But he said, yeah, there are hogs, because it is, Louisiana, Texas, we do get hogs. But I said, I don't know. I said, I was out here, and I said, definitely seemed like something was trying to get my attention. And the guy kind of brushed it off. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So after that, I drove off, and I called one of the guys that worked for me, who's a very avid hunter, especially in that area, kind of Lake of the Pines, Northeast Texas, Arkansas area. And I said, something very funny happened to me. I'm trying to figure this out. I kept hearing this knock sound like someone taking a baseball bat to a tree. And he goes, oh, yeah, I hear that all the time. And I was like, okay, well, what is that? He goes, well, that's a damn Sasquatch. And I go, like a Sasquatch, like Bigfoot, like Harry Henderson's? He goes, oh, yeah. I was like, well, what makes you think that? He's like, well, you never heard of a wood knock? I said, dude, I don't know what a wood knock is. He goes, oh, man. He goes, man, I've been in the hunting clubs for 20 years over here. He goes, I've been hearing that shit for years. And he went on to tell me, pretty crazy story of his own encounter, which, at the time I was still pretty skeptical, but he actually lived in that area just south of there. And this, of course, my story leads on to his story, where it goes, he had inherited a piece of land that was, it was by the road, but it backed into a real thick pine forest. So now whenever you think of like East Texas, you think of pine trees, but whenever you look at a pine thicket, you can't see in there because the underbrush just grows so thick. So it's very, it's very hard to see in there during the day, and at night it's almost impossible. But he said he was living there with his wife in a trailer on the side of the road for a couple of years. And he had a collie that he would walk down to one street light, which is about a quarter mile down, and then back over to his trailer. And he said that one night he took the collie down, and he got to like the edge of the light where it was shining. He said that collie wouldn't budge. And it started just growling at the woods. And he's looking at the woods. The woods is pitch black. You can't see anything. He says, next thing you know, the woods exploded. He said it was as if like a grenade or some kind of, shrapnel just blew out the woods. He said it covered him. His dog broke free from the leash, ran back to the house. And he said all he could see was just a large figure in front of him before he left himself. He said he then called up buddies from his hunting group. They arrived about half an hour later. They then investigated where this kind of explosion in the woods happened, and it turned out that they went through there, and it went from his highway by his house about 2 miles across the forest to another highway. He said limbs were broken from about 7 to 9 feet up, almost like a straight path was made right through the woods.
Oh, wow. That would be a scary experience. I mean, I don't think I'd be able to go back out around those woods again if something like that happened to me, let alone, just be like, oh, nonchalantly, yeah, it's been going on for years.
Yeah, they're like that those people out there, they're almost, I was talking to him, it was like it wasn't anything new. And, talking to other people, some people kind of, don't really believe and kind of just, whatever. But there's definitely a large community out there would be like, yes, I've heard the knocking. I've seen stuff. I've heard stories of another guy that was out early in the morning around 4:35, got to his deer blind, heard something scratching at the ladder of his blind and just literally stuck his shotgun out blindly and fired, because whatever was at his deer blind was still standing on the ground, but its head was almost level to the door of the deer blind. So it was definitely interesting out there. I didn't believe it until I lived out there, and I started hearing stories like that about Bigfoot, and that's what kind of got my fascination into the whole entire cryptid phenomenon.
So did you ever go back out to that specific site and work out there again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did.
Did you ever hear anything else like that again while you were out there?
I didn't, because I wasn't ever going alone.
Okay.
I would always say, like, hey, man, I'm going to need some help with this job. I need, come on, Joey, let's go. So I wasn't about to go out there on the own, because if you would drive in there and then as you circled around to the location, you were in a pocket. I mean, there wasn't any wind. The only sound you would hear was this pump that would kick on it, every once in a while. It was pretty much, if you were to disappear off that site, it'd be a while unless an operator came out there before that they knew that you're missing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's, if there is a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot out there and you go missing, then they probably wouldn't find you.
Yeah, so that was one of those, and there were always several sites like that out there. But after working there a year, like I said, that was the first time that ever happened before I ever even thought of anything like that being out there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. I don't know if I actually believe in Bigfoot. I don't. There is supposedly a Bigfoot in Mayaca State Park, which is a few 20 miles away from me. And one of my friends, Chaz, he thoroughly believes there's a Bigfoot out there. And so he's been trying to talk me into going out there with him, checking it out. I might do it. I might. As a skeptic.
I think it'd be worth it.
Oh, it might be. I mean, if I could actually see a Bigfoot, then I might, or at least have an experience, then I might think, yeah, this could be real. This could be real.
Yeah, and it's always funny, listen to all these Bigfoot encounters. One of the one thing that you always hear that's like the similarity is a lot of people that have seen Bigfoot usually wish to never have seen it at all.
Right.
I mean, you have hunters that been hunting their whole lives, and then they've seen this thing, and then they'll never step foot in the woods again.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too. That when hunters have weird experiences, they don't want to go back out, and I get that. I wouldn't want to go back out there either. That's why I'm really surprised that whole community was okay with the fact they had a Bigfoot in their woods.
Yeah. Well, okay, Jack. Well, I definitely appreciate you having me on tonight.
I appreciate you calling in, and thank you for sharing your Bigfoot story.
All right, Jack. You have a good one.
Good night. All right. If you'd like to call in, the call-in lines are open, and you can share your story. It doesn't necessarily have to be a paranormal story. It could be a cryptid story, a UFO story, or you could be a time traveler and you want to talk to me about the future. I really want to talk to a time traveler. I know I've said that a lot this live stream, but I really do. I want to talk to a time traveler. So my next paranormal experience that I had was when I decided to open my first business. So I opened a tattoo shop, and I bought this corner building. Well, I rented it out first, and I rented it out for a year, and then I ended up buying it. And it was a 2-story downtown old-timey building that needed some work. So after I bought it, I started cleaning up the upstairs, getting it all revamped, and tried to remodel it so I could live above the business. Well, this was also when I was in my early 20s. I think I was 22 at the time, so almost 20 years ago. So me and my friends decided to remodel and kind of just crash up there while we were remodeling. And every night that we would stay up there, I would hear footsteps in the hallway and coming up the stairs, because the building actually shared a common hall with the building next to it. So you would come in up the stairs, you would have a common hall, apartments to your left, or when it was originally built, it was for businesses upstairs and possibly apartments. And that's how my building was set up. Was they had businesses upstairs. They had a cigar shop and a lawyer's office above the business that was downstairs, which was a clothing store. And I don't really think that this ghost liked the fact that I turned a clothing store into a tattoo shop, because I did some research, and apparently the whole time that building, since the inception of that building, it had always been a clothing shop until I bought it and turned it into a tattoo shop. So I think the spirit that lived there did not like that. But we would always hear, or I would anyway, hear footsteps coming up the stairs. I would hear a door shut. I'd hear a door open and I'd hear a door shut. And I was in the other room. I didn't think anything of it. We were remodeling, so I didn't know if some just random person walked in and saw us or noticed somebody was up here and then left. I don't know. I didn't really care at that point in time. I was in my early 20s, squatting in my own building. So this happened several times. I would hear it. And then we finally got it remodeled enough to where we could actually live there ish. We got the main necessities built in, I should say. And we continued the remodel for the rest of the probably 6 months, 7 months. But almost every night I heard these footsteps coming up the stairs. I heard a door open, and this time it was my bedroom wall was in the stairwell, so I had it really echoed through there at that point in time that you could hear the person on the steps walking up. You could hear the front door open and close, and then I would hear that bedroom door open and close. I never saw it. One of my friends said that he actually saw it open and close. I don't know. And then stuff got a little weird. I was never affected by any of this. Note that the spirit left me alone, even though I think it hated the fact that I turned the beautiful clothing store into a tattoo shop. But I did get left alone, but my friend wasn't so lucky. He was upstairs and I was downstairs working, and I actually heard the commotion and the noise, but there was a fan up there. It was a huge ceiling fan. I couldn't tell you the inch wise, but we had 8-foot long fluorescent bulbs in the ceiling, and that was our lights until we got new lights to put up. But he was in there watching TV, doing whatever he was doing, and the fan blade came off the fan and nearly hit him in the side of the head. Then the fan got lopsided because it was missing a fan blade, and in such short time, it jumped up and busted out the fluorescent light all over on top of him. Before he had a chance to get up and turn everything off. And I heard all this and I ran upstairs. And yeah, he swears to God that the spirit that lived up there does not like him. Could it have been all weird coincidences? Yeah. But I did a little bit more research onto the building and the property. And what happened was, the guy who originally owned the building, his wife owned the dress shop downstairs, and he owned the law office upstairs, and he also owned the cigar store that was upstairs and in the other part, the long part of the building, because it was a 60 by 120. So upstairs there was definitely room enough to have two businesses up there at one point in time. And in that common hall across the way was an apartment, and he owned that building as well, and that was him and his wife's apartment. Well, apparently he died in the bathtub of that apartment, which, you know, that's kind of sad, dying in a bathtub. But it was also kind of bad that the guy that happened to, when we were remodeling, instead of, and this was before we had the bathroom installed, and instead of going downstairs to take a leak, he would go over and do it in the bathtub. Now you put all that together, and those coincidences now become something I feel there was intent. But like I said, he never messed with me at all. I don't know. But my friend did say one time he heard the walking up and he saw the door open and door close. So I don't know. I guess I never saw anything. I heard stuff all the time. But anyway, so this guy that owned that building, he would go to the bar after work and stay there and drink, and then he'd want to come home and do a little bit more work. And that was his routine. He would come home when the bar closed, went upstairs, do a little bit more work, and then went home and went to bed. So that's why I think that was him coming up the stairs every night. I don't know. That one I have to believe. It didn't freak me out because nothing actually happened to me like what happened at the cemetery. But I do think that was a fun ghost story that I have. So you can call in with your stories or your experiences and share them with me if you want. The number is 941-226-3943. We do have a little bit of time left before I get off here. And if we don't have any callers coming in the next few minutes, I'm probably going to end up telling another one of my stories.